On my wedding day, the bride didn't show up. Instead, a gig courier in a high-vis jacket walked down the aisle. "Mr. Mitch, hello. I'm here on behalf of Rebecca. She hired me to stand in for her and complete the ceremony." The crowded chapel went dead silent. I stood there, wearing the custom tuxedo Rebecca had personally picked out for me, my fingers slowly crushing the bridal bouquet in my hand until the stems snapped. Only last night she had stayed up until dawn, meticulously choosing the tie that would suit me best. "Connor," she had whispered, her arms wrapped around my neck. "No matter how long that aisle is tomorrow, I'll be right beside you to walk it to the end." Sitting in the front row, my grandmother, whose eyesight had been failing for years, heard the commotion. She smiled warmly and reached her trembling hand out toward the altar. "Rebecca? Come here, sweetheart. Let Grandma hold your hand. After today, you're officially my granddaughter." The courier took a half step back, her face turning bright red under the gaze of 100 guests. Then, she pulled a folded sheet of paper from her pocket. I stared at the printed lines, a sudden numbness creeping into my fingertips. Right then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Zach had posted an update on his private social media story, visible only to me. In the photo, Rebecca was wearing her custom-tailored wedding gown, smiling brightly as she wheeled a suitcase down a hallway ahead of him. His caption read, "She said a wedding can always be rescheduled, but I only have today." From the front row, Gran's quiet, fragile voice drifted up to me again. "Connor, why isn't Rebecca coming over?" I tossed the mangled bouquet onto the altar. Without looking at the crowd, I handed the courier's instruction sheet to the technician booth and had them projected onto the giant screens for every guest to see. "Gran," I said, my voice echoing through the speakers. "She outsourced her own wedding. We don't want a woman like that in our family." The text on the screens was magnified until every single word was agonizingly clear. "Bride's entrance. Hired courier will walk the aisle in her stead. The vows. Nod when prompted by the officiant. No verbal response required. Exchange of rings. If the groom is emotionally stable, the courier may slip the ring onto his finger. If he is unstable, simply hand the ring box to the officiant. Note: Connor's grandmother has severe vision impairment. If she mistakes the courier for the bride, there is no need to correct her." The color drained from the faces of the relatives in the front rows. Whispers broke out, turning into a low, angry hum. "Is this some kind of joke? Where the hell is the bride? She actually hired a delivery driver to stand in for her wedding." This is incredibly disrespectful to the Mitch family. Rebecca's mother, Mrs. Christian, was the first to snap out of the shock. Clutching her designer gown, she rushed up the steps of the altar. "Turn that off," she hissed, glaring at the technician booth before turning her venom on me. "Connor, do you have to humiliate both of our families today?" I took a step back, keeping my distance. "Mrs. Christian, I didn't humiliate anyone. Your daughter is the one who outsourced her wedding." Her face flushed an ugly purple, and she lowered her voice to a threatening whisper. "Don't forget who is sitting out there. Half of these guests are our business partners. Rebecca just had a temporary emergency. What do you gain by blowing this out of proportion?" I ignored her and looked at the terrified courier. "What else did Rebecca give you?" Fumbling with her pockets, the courier hastily produced a small black velvet box. Inside were 2 wedding bands. The groom's ring was the one I had picked out myself, carrying it in my pocket for weeks. The courier's voice shrank to a squeak. "Ms. Christian said, she said if you didn't make a scene, I should just hand these to the priest. She told me I didn't even have to touch your hand. I could just slide the box over." Another wave of outrage rippled through the pews. Hearing this, Gran struggled to stand up. Because she rose too quickly, her balance gave way, and her fragile frame swayed. I rushed over and caught her before she could fall. "Connor," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Is she really not here?" My throat felt like it was coated in sand. No, Gran. She sent a stranger to take her place. Gran went quiet for a long, heavy moment. Today, she was wearing a vintage burgundy silk dress. It was the same dress she had worn to her own wedding decades ago. The waist was far too tight now, so she had stayed up until midnight, painstakingly altering the seams by hand under a dim lamp. Before we left for the chapel, she had been practicing her blessing in her room, whispering to herself. Rebecca, my Connor has a stubborn streak, but he has a good heart. Please be patient with him. Then she had looked up at me, asking softly, Connor, do you think that sounds okay? I don't want to embarrass you in front of her family. I had held her hands and told her she was perfect. That's good. She had smiled, her face wrinkling with warmth. I wanted to wear something festive. I can't let my boy down. Now, Gran slowly reached up to her chest, unpinned her red rose corsage, and crushed it in her palm. Mrs. Christian was still trying to salvage the situation. She turned to the wedding planner. What are you standing there for? Keep the music playing. The bride's representative is here. We are continuing the ceremony. She glared at me. Connor, I'm giving you one last chance. When Rebecca gets back, you can throw whatever tantrum you want. But if you drag our family through the mud today, don't expect her to ever walk down an aisle for you again. I picked up the microphone from the altar. To all our guests, I said, as you can see, the bride isn't here today. She arranged for a courier to walk the aisle, nod to the vows, and exchange the rings. She even planned for all of us to lie to my grandmother. I paused, looking out over the crowd. The wedding is officially cancelled. Every single registry gift and cash donation will be returned to you by the end of the day. Mrs. Christian screamed, Connor! I didn't give her another look. I plugged my phone into the AV system and projected Zach's Instagram story onto the massive screens behind us. The white wedding car, the flowing lace of Rebecca's gown, her radiant smile. And the caption, she said a wedding can always be rescheduled, but I only have today. As for Rebecca, I said, my voice steady and cold, I'm done. As I guided Gran toward the exit, my phone began to vibrate. It was Rebecca. I tapped the screen and put it on speakerphone. Her voice filled the quiet space, calm, sweet, and laced with a hint of exasperation. Con, what's going on? The coordinator just called and said you're refusing to go through with the ceremony. She spoke with such easy nonchalance, as if she hadn't just abandoned her own wedding, as if I were merely a toddler throwing a fit over nothing. Rebecca, I said, do you even know what you wrote on the instructions you gave that courier? I heard her sigh softly on the other end. I knew you'd be upset when you saw it, but I did it to keep things moving. You get so anxious in front of crowds, Con. I didn't want you standing up there looking foolish and alone. I let out a cold, sharp laugh. So you wanted our entire family to lie to my grandmother? The line went quiet for a second. When she spoke again, her tone was softer, patronizing. Con, let's not make a big deal out of this. Gran's eyes are so bad anyway, she wouldn't have even noticed. Just cooperate with me, okay? Your tie is probably crooked, and it's going to ruin the photos. You know how much I love you in that tuxedo. When I get back, we'll take our own private photos. Where are you right now, Rebecca? I asked slowly. There was a brief hesitation. I'm with Zach. His landlord evicted him, and all his things were thrown onto the sidewalk. I couldn't just leave him sitting out there in the cold. I looked down at Gran, whose head was bowed. So you left my grandmother to cry at our wedding instead? Suddenly, Zach's voice drifted through the receiver. Rebecca, am I causing trouble again? You should go back. I'll be fine on my own. Rebecca's voice instantly dropped, muffled as she spoke to him. Don't touch that box, Zach, it's too heavy. Just wait for me. Then she turned her attention back to me. Con, a wedding is just a piece of paper and a party. You're the one I chose to spend my life with. You've always been the sensible one. You wouldn't want to embarrass both our families over something this trivial, right? At that moment, the truth finally sank in. It wasn't that she didn't know how much this would hurt me. She knew. She just knew I would endure it. Because I was sensible. Because I loved her. She was handing me a blade, expecting me to press it into my own chest and smile through the bleeding. Gran suddenly reached up and took my hand. Her voice was quiet, but it carried perfectly through the silent hall. You don't let a stranger stand in for your wedding. I squeezed her hand. You don't need to come back, Rebecca, I said into the phone. I'm not marrying you. Her breathing finally hitched. Connor, calm down. Don't throw our future away over a tantrum. I smiled, though there was no warmth in it. You outsourced our wedding. I'm just cutting my losses on the marriage. Before she could speak, I hung up. In front of Mrs. Christian and all the remaining guests, I blocked her number. As we walked toward the exit, the hotel manager caught up to us, looking highly uncomfortable as he held an invoice. Mr. Mitch, I understand the wedding is cancelled, but the remaining balance for the venue and catering must be settled today. Before I could speak, Gran stepped forward. She reached into her coat and pulled out a faded red cloth purse. The edges were worn, mended with thick, uneven thread. I recognized it immediately. It was where she kept her life savings. Inside, there was supposed to be the welcoming cash gift for Rebecca, along with a pair of handmade red silk pillowcases she had spent weeks sewing for us. Because of her failing eyesight, she had worked on them day and night, tearing out the stitches and restarting whenever they went crooked. Con, she had told me when she finished them, newlyweds need to sleep peacefully. These stitches carry my blessings for a long, happy life. Now, she bypassed all of that and handed her debit card to the manager. How much do we owe? Gran, no, I said, trying to push her hand back. I've got this. She patted the back of my hand gently. Connor, money can always be earned back. But if you enter a family on your knees, you'll spend the rest of your life unable to stand up straight. The manager looked at her with pity. Ma'am, the balance is quite high. Gran nodded. Run the card. My grandson doesn't owe them a single dime. Her hand shook violently as she pressed her fingers against the keypad to enter her PIN. She got it wrong the first time, and the second. Frantic, she apologized to the manager. I'm so sorry. My eyes are failing me and my fingers are clumsy. Please, don't hold it against my Connor. Watching her, a tight knot formed in my chest, making it hard to breathe. Just then, Mrs. Christian marched over. She snatched a red velvet jewelry box from her bag and threw it violently at my feet. The box burst open on the marble floor. Since you're calling off the wedding, give us back our family heirlooms, Mrs. Christian spat. Don't act all high and mighty while holding on to our gold. Did you really think you deserve to be part of our family? Gran instinctively bent down. Because of her poor vision, she thought something of value had dropped and wanted to help retrieve it. Before I could stop her, her palm pressed directly onto a shard of glass from the shattered box. Blood immediately began to pool on the floor. Gran! I gasped, dropping to my knees. Gran's face went white with pain, but her first instinct was to pull her hand into her sleeve, trying to hide the wound. Don't let it drip, Con, she whispered. The hotel's carpet looks expensive. In that second, a blinding fury roared to life in my chest. Mrs. Christian scoffed, crossing her arms. Oh, please. What a cheap performance. The Christian family gold isn't something just anyone can touch. I stood up, stepped forward, and slapped her hard across the face. The sharp crack echoed off the high ceilings of the lobby. Everyone froze. Mrs. Christian clutched her cheek, staring at me in absolute disbelief. You dared to hit me. I reached down, tore off the heavy heirloom gold bracelet from my wrist, the one she had insisted I wear as her future son-in-law, and hurled it straight at her chest. Take your gold and get the hell out of my sight, I snarled, my voice shaking with a rage I had never felt before. "If anything happens to my grandmother, your family won't have enough money to pay for it." In the sterile corridor of the hospital, I was still wearing my wedding tuxedo. Gran sat on a plastic chair outside the exam room, her palm bound in white gauze after receiving 5 stitches. I knelt in front of her, unable to look her in the eye. "Gran, I'm so sorry. I brought this on us. I chose the wrong person." Gran reached out with her uninjured hand and gently stroked my hair. "Connor, don't you dare apologize. Walking away today was the best thing you've ever done. My eyes might be failing, but today I saw everything clearly." That night, I spent hours returning every single registry gift and donation. By 1 a.m., I finally unlocked the door to the apartment we were supposed to share. The entry code was still my birthday. I stood in the entryway, unable to take a step further. The living room was crowded with pink cardboard boxes, each one bearing Zach's name in bold marker. His expensive sneakers were lined up on the top shelf of our shoe rack. His cologne sat dead center on my writing desk. In the master bedroom, his discarded jacket was draped carelessly over the headboard. The vibrant red silk bedding I had spent hours preparing for our wedding night had been ripped off the mattress and tossed into the dirty laundry hamper on the balcony like a piece of trash. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was a notification from our mutual friend group chat, the one containing me, Rebecca, Zach, and a dozen of our college friends. Zach had posted a short video. In the video, he was sitting on our new bed, wearing the spare wedding tie I had left hanging in the closet. He smiled warmly at the camera. "Finally moved into the new home she built for me," he said. From off-camera, Rebecca's voice filtered in, soft and slightly scolding. "Stop playing around, Zach. Connor will mind." Zach leaned back, flashing a boyish grin. "But he's always so sensible. You said yourself, he'll get used to it." The video went silent for a second. Then Rebecca murmured softly, "Just don't push him too hard." A second later, the video was retracted from the chat. But it was too late. I had already downloaded and saved it to my drive. My phone lit up again. It was a private message from my best man, Will. "Con, are you okay?" I stared at the screen, and a sudden, quiet laughter spilled from my lips. It turned out I wasn't even the first groom to sleep in my own wedding bed. I walked into the walk-in closet, dragged out my suitcase, and packed only my essential documents, a few changes of clothes, and the handmade red pillowcases Gran had sewed for us. When I stripped off the tuxedo, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. Then, I hung it up neatly, right in the center of the closet. I placed the wedding ring boxes on the nightstand, beside a simple note, "Rebecca, we are done." The next morning, Rebecca returned to the apartment. She was still wearing her wedding dress, though the hem of the white lace was stained with grey dust from Zach's moving boxes. Zach hovered behind her, his voice small and hesitant. "Rebecca, do you think Connor is still mad?" Rebecca offered a tired, dismissive chuckle. "His heart is too soft, Zach. No matter how bad the fight was last night, he just needs to sleep it off. I'll buy him a nice dinner and he'll be fine." She pushed open the bedroom door. The smile froze on her face. The closet was half empty. My clothes, my books, my documents, all gone. Only the wedding tuxedo hung in the center, looking like a ghost. On the nightstand sat the rings, the house keys, and my note. Zach's face paled. Maybe he's just trying to scare you." Before he could finish, Rebecca's phone rang. It was the hotel manager. She answered it, trying to keep her voice steady. "The wedding balance. Contact my assistant, she'll handle the payment." The line was quiet for a second. "Miss Christian, the balance was fully settled by Mr. Mitch last night. However, he left a message for us to convey to you. He said the suit is returned, the rings are returned, and the apartment will be settled through our lawyers." The phone slipped from Rebecca's fingers, clattering against the hardwood floor. The reality finally hit her. This wasn't a temporary tantrum. I wasn't waiting for her to come home and coax me back. I had stripped her of the right to even ask for my forgiveness. The sharp sound of the phone hitting the floor startled Zach. He looked at her, wide-eyed. "Rebecca." He reached out, his fingers brushing her sleeve. She violently whipped her arm away. "Don't touch me!" Zach's eyes instantly welled with tears. "Are you blaming me? I didn't want yesterday to happen. I didn't want you to miss your wedding to help me move. But my landlord threw me out, Rebecca. I literally had nowhere else to go." In the past, the moment he showed even a hint of vulnerability, Rebecca would have softened instantly. She would have spent hours comforting him, telling him, "It's not your fault. You were just scared." But now, her eyes were fixed on the empty space in the closet. She looked over at the laundry hamper on the balcony, where the red wedding sheets lay crumpled. I had spent 3 days smoothing out the creases of those sheets. I had told her the deep red was traditional and warm. She had laughed and called it old-fashioned, but she had still helped me pull the corners tight. That night, she had held me from behind, resting her cheek against my shoulder. "Connor," she had murmured, "I want you to be the first thing I see every morning for the rest of my life." I had teased her for being overly sentimental, but she had kissed my cheek. "I mean it. I'm only ever going to love you." Now, Zach's dirty jacket lay on that very bed. Her promises felt like a physical slap to her face. "Pack your things," Rebecca said, her voice dropping to a freezing register. "Get everything out of here today." Zach's face went white. "But yesterday you said—" "Yesterday I was out of my mind," she cut him off, her gaze boring into him. "This is my wedding home with Connor. You have no business being here." Zach stood frozen. "I don't have a home anymore." "Then go find one. Just don't do it in my house." He stared at her, horrified. "Rebecca, you've never spoken to me like this." She bent down, snatched her phone from the floor, grabbed her car keys, and marched past him. Zach ran after her. "Where are you going?" "To find him." "What about me?" Rebecca stopped at the door, turning back to look at him one last time. "Zach, the foolish things I've done for you end today." She drove straight to Gran's house, but the heavy iron gate was padlocked. Our neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, was walking back from the grocery store with a bag of vegetables. Recognizing Rebecca, she let out a cold snort. "Oh, look, the bride who sent a delivery girl to her own wedding actually showed up." Rebecca's throat tightened. "Mrs. Higgins, where did Connor and Gran go?" Mrs. Higgins looked her up and down with open disdain. "Gone. Took the dawn train." The old lady's hand was completely wrapped in bandages. Connor had to carry all their bags with one hand while holding on to her with the other. I asked him when they'd be back, and he said they're never coming back to this city. The color drained entirely from Rebecca's face. "That poor old woman cried all night," Mrs. Higgins added, shaking her head. "She kept saying she must have been blind to almost let her grandson marry into a family of wolves." The words felt like a physical blow to Rebecca's chest. She pulled out her phone and dialed my number. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." She tried messaging me. A red exclamation mark popped up next to her text. Every bridge had been burned, every point of contact entirely severed. She suddenly remembered the note I had left on the nightstand. "Rebecca, we are done." She had thought I was just acting out. Now she realized I was truly gone. Rebecca drove to the train station like a madwoman. The GPS showed a 20-minute arrival time. She ran 2 yellow lights, her fingers gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. By the time she reached the ticket gate, the security guards had already closed the barrier. "Ma'am, boarding for this platform has closed," the guard said, stopping her. "The train to Charleston?" she gasped, out of breath. "It just departed." Rebecca rushed to the glass partition overlooking the platforms. Down below, the silver train was slowly beginning to glide away. Through the double-paned glass, she spotted us. I was sitting by the window, helping Gran adjust the worn red purse in her lap. As the train picked up speed, I looked up and saw her. Rebecca's mouth opened, her lips forming my name, but the roar of the engines drowned out everything. She raised her hand, pressing it against the glass, pleading with me to wait. I looked at her for a brief, empty second. Then, I reached out and pulled the window shade down, shutting her out completely. As the train disappeared into the dark tunnel, Rebecca stood frozen on the platform, feeling as though her chest had been hollowed out. She had finally caught up to me. But all she had managed to catch was the sight of my departure. I brought Gran back to Charleston. The sun was just beginning to rise when we reached our old family home. Gran's injured hand couldn't touch water, but she was already busy hovering around the kitchen, wanting to make me breakfast. "Connor, let me boil some hot noodles for you. We need to wash away all that bad luck." I gently pressed her down onto a small wooden stool. "I'll do it, Gran. Sit down." The kitchen was tiny, smelling of dried peppers and old wood. I cooked 2 simple bowls of egg noodles. Gran immediately fished the fried egg from her bowl and dropped it into mine. "From now on, keep the best things for yourself," she murmured. "Don't go giving everything away to people who don't deserve it." I kept my head down, chewing slowly, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. She reached over with her good hand, gently wiping a tear from my cheek with a tissue. "Don't cry, Con. When you cry, my heart breaks." I rented a small, sunlit apartment in Charleston. It wasn't large, but the balcony faced south, letting the warm afternoon sun flood the living room. Gran loved sitting out there, turning her old red purse over and over in her hands. The bank card was empty now, but the handmade red pillowcases were still tucked inside. She stroked the uneven stitches and sighed. "It's a good thing we didn't give these to her. They would have just been dirtied." I took the purse from her and placed it in the deepest drawer of my nightstand. It was no longer a wedding gift. It was a reminder. I updated my resume and began applying for jobs. Before I met Rebecca, I had spent 3 years working as a senior events coordinator, managing major corporate galas, exhibitions, and regional cultural festivals. But after we got engaged, Rebecca had told me, "Con, you don't have to work yourself to the bone anymore. I'll handle the career side, and you can focus on managing our life." I had believed her. I resigned, prepared for the wedding, took care of both our elderly parents, and became the stable, invisible anchor she always said she needed. Only now did I realize that she considered that anchor completely disposable, easily cast aside the moment Zach needed her. 3 days later, Rebecca arrived in Charleston. It was raining heavily outside. She stood on our doorstep, her beige trench coat soaked through on one side. She was holding a bag of imported vitamins, some premium supplements, and a bouquet of white roses that had been bruised by the rain. When she saw me, her eyes welled with tears. "Connor," she whispered, her voice carrying that same soft, familiar cadence she used whenever she wanted to soothe me. "I searched everywhere for a day before I found this place. I'll cover all of Gran's medical bills. And the hotel venue. I'll repay you 10 times over." I remained standing behind the threshold, not inviting her in. "That won't be necessary." She took a step closer. "Con, I know I made a mistake. I've completely kicked Zach out. I'm having the apartment professionally deep cleaned and sanitized. If you don't like it anymore, we can sell it and buy a new one. We can have the wedding again." She tried to smile, but her tears kept falling. "You always wanted a beach wedding, didn't you? We'll do it by the coast. We'll lay the aisle right along the sand, and I swear, I'll walk every single step of it with you." It was a beautiful speech. Rebecca had always known how to lay the world at my feet when she wanted to. In the past, I would have folded immediately. She would have wrapped her arms around me, whispering, "Con, I'm sorry, please don't leave me." And I would have forgiven her because her vulnerability was so rare and beautiful. But now, all I could see was the vast, humiliating emptiness at the end of that wedding aisle. "Rebecca," I said quietly, "the wedding isn't what's broken. You are." Her face went pale. "I can change. I promise I can." Gran walked out from the inner room, supporting herself against the doorframe, her hands still heavily bandaged. Rebecca immediately bowed her head. "Gran, I'm so sorry." Gran shook her head slowly. "Don't call me that. You weren't there at the altar. It's too late now." "I really know I was wrong," Rebecca sobbed. Gran looked at her with quiet pity. "You don't know you were wrong. You're just terrified because Connor actually walked away this time." At those words, Rebecca froze. Before I closed the door, I heard her hollow voice through the screen. "Con, I'll wait here until you forgive me." I didn't look back. She wasn't the type of person who knew how to wait. She was simply experiencing, for the very first time, what it felt like to be left behind. Rebecca stayed in Charleston. Every single morning, a fresh breakfast would appear outside our door. Warm soy milk, steamed buns, and sweet pastries, all the things I used to love. Sometimes there was a hot cup of coffee with a sticky note attached. "Con, your stomach is sensitive. Don't drink cold things in the morning." Gran would find them, and without a word, she'd call the neighbor's golden retriever over to eat the food. "Even a dog appreciates a meal more than she appreciates a commitment," she muttered. I didn't say anything. Gran would finish grumbling, then peek at me out of the corner of her eye. "Con, you're not going to soften up on her, are you?" I shook my head. "No, Gran." Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. On the third evening, Zach showed up. He was wearing a simple white linen shirt, standing at the entrance of our narrow alleyway. The rain made his pale skin look almost translucent. "Connor," he called out, "we need to talk." I didn't open the iron gate. He stared at me through the metal bars. "I know you hate me, but Rebecca and I grew up together. Her looking out for me is a habit she's had for 15 years. You can't expect her to throw away over a decade of history just because of one wedding ceremony." I looked at him calmly. "If your history is so precious, why did you have to use my wedding to prove it?" Zach choked on his words. His eyes instantly reddened again, slipping back into his familiar victim persona. "You have your grandmother. You have a home. You have people who love you unconditionally. I have nothing. I just wanted one person in this world to choose me first." "Then find a single woman," I said. "Don't use another man's fiancée as your emotional safety net." The fragile, helpless look on his face cracked, revealing a flash of malice. "Connor, don't get too ahead of yourself. Rebecca is only chasing you because she feels guilty right now. Once that guilt wears off, she'll remember that I'm the only one who truly understands her." "Zach," Rebecca's voice cut through the dark alley. She was standing under a black umbrella, her face pale and furious. Zach spun around, his expression shifting to panic. "Rebecca, I was just trying to explain things to him for you." Rebecca marched up to him, her voice trembling with cold rage. "Who allowed you to come here and speak to him?" I told you to stay away from him," she yelled. Zach stared at her, his hurt turning into resentment. "You've changed, Rebecca. You used to hate seeing me cry. You used to protect me." "I used to be blind," she spat. Zach's face went entirely white. Then a slow, ugly smile spread across his lips. "Why are you putting on this big show of devotion now? Rebecca, don't pretend you didn't enjoy being my savior. You loved having me depend on you. You loved the thrill of being needed, especially when you got tired of how stable and boring Connor was." Rebecca's eyes widened. "Shut up." I actually smiled. "No, let him speak." Having lost all leverage, Zach completely tore off his mask. He looked at me, his eyes gleaming with spite. "You think she loved you, Connor? She was just comfortable with you. She told me herself. You were so sensible, it was exhausting." He took a step closer to the gate. "That video from the wedding? I planned the whole thing. I was going to edit it to make you look like a controlling psycho who forced his bride to abandon her childhood friend in an emergency. I even had the headline ready." He laughed bitterly. Too bad you were too fast and projected that Instagram story first. Rebecca stared at him in utter horror. Zach, you're a monster. I am what you made me, Zach sneered, his tears mixing with the rain. I came back to this country to take you back. I didn't even want to marry you. I just couldn't stand the thought of you putting someone else before me. I stepped back and gripped the handle of our wooden door. I looked at Rebecca one last time. Look, Rebecca, this is the man you abandoned our wedding for. With that, I shut the door, leaving their shouting match outside in the rain. Zach wasn't done playing his hand. The very next day, he started a live stream. In the video, he sat against a bare white wall in his rented room, his face pale and eyes swollen. His voice was hoarse as he spoke to the camera. I'm just a guy who lost his home. I was evicted by my landlord that morning, and I was terrified. I never wanted to steal anyone's bride. I only called Rebecca because I had no one else to turn to. Initially, the comments section was filled with sympathy. Oh my God, his childhood friend is so toxic for leaving him like that. The groom seems incredibly controlling. Can't a girl help her friend in an emergency? A wedding can be rescheduled, but mental health is fragile. Zach wiped a tear, continuing his performance. Connor never liked me. On the wedding day, he humiliated me publicly, assaulted Rebecca's mother, and demanded financial compensation from their family. I really don't know what to do anymore. The live stream quickly gained traction, and gossip pages began clipping the video with sensational headlines. Controlling groom forces bride to abandon evicted childhood friend. The terrifying reality of marrying an insecure man. He didn't just cancel a wedding, he destroyed a lifeline. I sat in front of my computer, watching the numbers climb, remaining entirely silent. My lawyer called me. Mr. Mitch, should we upload the files now? I watched Zach dabbing at his eyes on screen. Give it 3 more minutes. 3 minutes later, Zach uttered the crucial lie. I never recorded any videos of Connor. I never wanted to hurt him. I nodded. Do it. Within seconds, my lawyer's official account dropped a massive folder of evidence directly into the stream's main comment section. 1. The complete, unedited video of the wedding venue confrontation. 2. The high-resolution photo of the instruction sheet Rebecca had printed for the courier. 3. The screenshot of Zach's private Instagram story. 4. The security camera footage from the apartment showing Zach moving his items in. 5. The audio recording of Zach admitting to setting up the video outside my alleyway. The chat feed froze for a few seconds. Then it exploded. Wait, what the hell is this PDF instruction sheet? Gran has poor vision. No need to correct her if she mistakes the courier for the bride. Are you kidding me? This isn't just selfish, this is straight up evil. He just said he didn't record any videos, but there's a voice recording of him admitting to the setup. He got a ride in the bridal car, stayed in the wedding suite, and still has the nerve to play the victim. Zach watched the comments turn on him in real time. His face went translucent. He scrambled to shut down the stream, but in his panic, he kept clicking the wrong buttons, and his assistant's voice leaked through the microphone. Zach, turn it off. The original audio files are trending on Twitter. The stream cut to black, but the damage was irreversible. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Rebecca. Connor, I am so sorry. I deleted the message without replying. That night, the Christian family group chat went up in flames. Mrs. Christian had been posting paragraphs defending her daughter and calling me ungrateful. But after the evidence leaked, the chat went dead silent. Finally, one of Rebecca's aunts messaged, "Outsourcing a wedding and deceiving an elderly woman, and you have the nerve to talk about manners." Several relatives left the group immediately. Mrs. Christian was reportedly hospitalized due to a spike in her blood pressure. The fallout quickly reached Rebecca's company. She was the marketing director for a high-end wedding planning firm in Boston. Her firm had been bidding on a multi-million-dollar destination wedding project for a major tourism board. The client terminated negotiations the next morning. Their email to the firm's partners was short and brutal. A director who outsources her own wedding to a gig worker cannot be trusted to manage our brand's most critical event. Rebecca was suspended indefinitely. She had spent her entire career creating flawless, organized itineraries for other people. In the end, she was ruined by the one she had outsourced for herself. 3 months later, I accepted a position as the Senior Event Director for the Charleston Tourism Group. During my final interview, the hiring director looked at my resume. "Mr. Mitch, I see a 6-month gap in your employment. Were you preparing for a wedding?" I nodded. "Yes, but those plans have changed. May I ask why?" I smiled gently. "I realize that outsourcing your life's milestones to someone else carries a risk that is simply too high." The director paused, then smiled back. "In that case, welcome aboard. We're glad to have someone who keeps the reins in his own hands." I threw myself into my work. I spent my days reviewing floor plans, negotiating with suppliers, managing logistics on site, and restructuring event flows. The professional skills I had put on hold for the sake of being the sensible partner came rushing back. I hadn't lost my edge. I had simply spent too long making myself small. By the end of the quarter, the night tourism project I designed for the historic district was approved for launch. Coincidentally, this was the exact contract Rebecca's former firm had lost. At the press conference held in Charleston's oldest restored theatre, the client representative took the stage to deliver the opening remarks. "We met with several prominent event agencies," she told the media. "Most of them saw weddings as a combination of lighting, floral arrangements, and strict timelines. But when Mr. Mitch submitted his proposal, the very first line caught our attention." She looked down at me in the front row. He wrote, "A wedding is not a ceremony where people are forced to fit a process. It is a moment where every person who shows up with love deserves to be seen." The room erupted into applause. In the back row, I saw Rebecca. She was wearing a plain black suit that seemed to drape loosely over her thin frame. Her face was hollow, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. The very philosophy I had used to win the project was a direct rejection of the cold, clinical itinerary she had written for our wedding day. When the presentation ended, I walked toward the backstage exit. Rebecca was waiting by the door. "Connor," she said, her voice dry and cracked. I stopped. "Ms. Christian, is there something you need?" The clinical distance in my voice made her flinch. "Do you really have to address me like a stranger? We don't have any other relationship." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small red velvet pouch. My chest tightened slightly. "Don't worry," she said quickly, seeing my reaction. "I didn't touch Gran's things. I had this custom made to replicate her old purse. Inside is the reimbursement for the hotel, the medical bills, and a compensation fee for the distress I caused." She looked down at the velvet in her hand. "Connor, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I don't know what else to do." I didn't reach for it. "Have your attorney send it to mine. We will handle the accounting through the proper channels." Her hand hovered in the air before slowly dropping to her side. She let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "You really won't leave even a shred of warmth between us, will you?" I looked her in the eyes. "Rebecca, I didn't destroy the warmth. You did. You handed it to a courier on our wedding day." Tears began to spill over her lashes. "I spoke to the hotel manager after you left. He told me that when your grandmother was trying to pay the bill, her hand was still bleeding. She kept hiding her arm in her sleeve because she didn't want to stain their desk." She took a shaky breath. "Connor, what was I doing that day? What was wrong with me?" "You were helping Zach move," I replied, my voice perfectly level. "You were wearing your wedding dress, driving my wedding car, putting his boxes into our house. And you hired a stranger to tell me you loved me." Rebecca's shoulders began to shake. "Please, stop." Why should I? My grandmother wanted to stop too. She wanted to preserve your dignity even when she was bleeding. Did you give her a single thought? She bowed her head, her posture completely collapsing. I'm so sorry. Connor, I'll sign the apartment over to you. I'll give you everything I have. Just give me one more chance. Please. In the past, seeing her cry like this would have torn me apart. Now I only felt a profound, exhausting emptiness. A second chance isn't like a wedding ring, Rebecca. You can't just go out and buy a replacement when you lose the first one. You used up your last chance the moment you let that courier walk down the aisle. I stepped past her and walked out into the cool night air. Behind me, her voice drifted out, thin and desperate. Is there really nothing left of us? I didn't stop. Nothing. 6 months later, the court finalized the division of our assets. The apartment was sold, and the proceeds were split strictly according to our financial contributions. Rebecca was also legally ordered to return the $320,000 she had secretly withdrawn from our joint account to pay for Zach's expenses. Zach was found liable for defamation, and the court ordered him to post a public apology video. When the apology was posted online, I only watched the first 10 seconds before closing the tab. Gran sat on the balcony soaking in the winter sun. Is he crying sincerely this time? She asked. No, I replied, setting my phone down. Gran let out a soft huff. Then don't waste your eyes on him. The cuts on her palm had fully healed, leaving only a few faint, silvery scars. Every time I looked at them, my chest ached with lingering guilt. But Gran would always pat my hand and say, "Scars are good, Con. They remind us not to reach into a bin of broken glass again." A few weeks later, I took Gran to get a new pair of prescription glasses. During the eye exam, she sat in the big chair, peering through the lens machine as the doctor adjusted the dials. "Is this clear, ma'am?" the optometrist asked. "A bit blurry," Gran murmured. He clicked another dial. "How about now?" "Oh!" Gran gasped, her face lighting up. "Yes, very clear." When she put on the finished glasses, she didn't look at the floor or the door to find her footing. Instead, she turned her head and stared directly at me. She looked at me for a long time, a soft smile spreading across her face. "My Connor has gotten so thin." My eyes stung, and I had to look away for a second. "I'll gain it back, Gran, I promise." She nodded, squeezing my hand. "Good. From now on, Gran can see everything clearly. I'll never mistake a stranger for family again." By the end of the year, our department held its annual gala. The historical night tourism project I designed won the company's Innovation of the Year award. When they called my name, the spotlights swept across the room, focusing on me as I walked up to the stage. The applause was deafening. Gran sat in the very front row, wearing her new glasses, proudly holding her phone up to record every second of my walk. She could see me clearly now. She would never have to squint through the dark again, trying to recognize someone who wasn't worthy of her love. Standing at the podium, holding the trophy, I looked out at the crowd. "A great event doesn't exist to hide our flaws," I said into the microphone. "It exists to ensure that every person who shows up with sincerity is treated with respect." The room applauded again. Gran's eyes were bright, sparkling under the ballroom lights. She was looking at the man I had become. And for the first time in a very long time, I was looking at him too. After the gala ended, I helped Gran bundle up in her winter coat and guided her toward the exit. It had started to snow outside, the white flakes drifting quietly through the streetlights. Across the street, standing under a glowing lamp, was Rebecca. She was wearing a long black coat, holding a fresh bouquet of white roses. When she caught my eye, she took a half step forward, then froze. Gran noticed her too. She looked up at me gently. "Do you want to go talk to her, Con?" I shook my head. "No, Gran. Let's go home." Rebecca watched us from across the street. She was still beautiful, her features delicate and sharp against the winter backdrop. like a lingering dream from a life I used to live. But once you wake up from a dream, you don't go back to sleep just to find it again. As the pedestrian light turned green, I took Gran's arm and we stepped off the curb. From behind us, carried by the winter wind, came a quiet, fractured whisper. "Connor, I'm sorry." I didn't turn around. Some people don't just miss a wedding. They miss every single moment they were ever supposed to be there for you. The snow fell softly onto my shoulders, melting instantly. Gran held my hand tightly as we walked through the quiet streets. "Are you cold, Con?" I smiled down at her, pulling her arm closer to mine. "Not at all, Gran." I used to think my life only began when she walked down the aisle to meet me. But as we walked together into the quiet winter night, I finally understood. In the grand story of my life, I have always been my own protagonist.